Commence primary ignition.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Life at Lightspeed podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin, and today I'm flying solo because the wife is busy, and that's okay. Don't worry. We may or may not talk about Max Rebo the whole time. Maybe. Just kidding. There is some great news about the Mandalorian and Grogu that just came out recently. I'm also going to talk about some of my predictions for Maul Shadow Lord, because this month is March Maulness. Very exciting stuff. But before we get going, just wanted to give a huge shout out to the one and only Virtual Cantina Network for sponsoring our podcast. We got Boonta Eve happening August 7th of this year over at Rebel Scum Con. This is the third one. There's so many great guests that are lined up for it, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's dive into it. There was a new article that just came out from Empire Magazine where we got a couple of great pictures. One of them is this, and we'll definitely talk about this in a second because there's a lot to break down there, because not only is this Jabba the Hutt's son, but we saw this character in the Clone Wars, in the movie and throughout the show. And then we also got a closer look at Din Djarin's of his new walker that we see here, and we saw these in Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars as well. So we love the ATRTs. But I want to dive straight into this here. Now, this is really, really cool because not only is Jeremy Allen White voicing this character, but he actually had a lot to say. So there's, and this is a quote from Jeremy Allen White. He says, "There's a little bit of Huttese. My speaking voice changes as Rada. It was helpful, of course, to listen to Jabba." And then we also learn more about his character. Favreau likes the character. Favreau likes the character Donnie Creed in the Creed movies. A character living in their father's shadow. Sorry, guys, it's been a long day. I've been watching Hayden since 7 a.m. When you're trying to establish yourself and your name is famous, when you're a Jabba the Hutt's kid, what does that do? How has that affected his trajectory? So in a way, I think Rada in this movie is going to feel like he's living in his dad's shadow. And I think that's going to be a real interesting thing to see. And then it sounds like he will be jumping from the Huttese language to English, which is super interesting because the only time we've really seen a Hutt speak English was Zero the Hutt in the Clone Wars movie, and then throughout the Clone Wars TV show. But then we have the two twins, which the male Hutt of the brother, and the new trailer that just came out, he does speak English. So it's going to be really interesting to see of what he ends up doing in this movie. And there's a lot of Clone Wars throwbacks because we are going back to Nal Hutta, which we also saw in the Clone Wars, and we also have Embo as well, who we also saw in the Clone Wars. Dave Filoni was heavily involved in this, which makes sense why there's so many different Clone Wars references, and that was one of the coolest things about the Mandalorian is that Dave Filoni was bringing on what he experienced and made in the Clone Wars TV show and Rebels and everything, and then he had the opportunity to continue the stories in a way in the Mandoverse. Um, Speaking of the Mandoverse, I am doing 143 Mandoverse facts for 143 days. I am about to post number 65 after this episode. But yeah, so I'm very very excited for the Mandalorian and Grogu. There have been, I feel like their advertising has been, you know, ever since after the Super Bowl, it's been up, 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 and it's just been going. So we love to see more toy releases, announcements, and of just different posters all the way leading up. And it comes down a couple of months because we're now in March, which is absolutely insane. So looking forward to that movie for sure. But before we get that movie, we are getting Maul Shadow Lord, uh, which that comes out on April 6th, 2 episodes a week, leading up to May 4th, which is on a Monday. So new episodes will drop on Mondays, which is really great, but also it's a Monday, so it's kind of like a weird kind of day to be dropping an episode. That may just be me, but hey, I am still very, very excited about the show. It takes place 1 year after the events of of Order 66, of Revenge of the Sith, of that one moment in the Clone Wars, because that last time that we saw Maul in the Clone Wars was when he was taking off, and Ahsoka almost, chopped his head off. So, uh, and of how Sam Witwer has talked about, of where Maul is in the show was really interesting because he talks about uh, how a different point of view that Maul has, and how he kind of respects the Jedi in a way now, which is really interesting. And I really hope that they dive deeper into that, just because of Sam talking about it, was very interesting to me. But with the timeline of the show, I think this opens up a lot of different opportunities. Not saying that, I am one to watch shows specifically for Easter eggs, but I think there will be a lot of tie-ins because there could be a bunch of tie-ins from Tales of the Empire when Barra Sophie becomes an inquisitor and then stops being an inquisitor at some point. And then you also have the show probably crossing over in the same timeline as the Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch happens directly after after Order 66. And I could see them having some crossover in some way. I could see Asajj Ventress popping up. There is a lot of different opportunity. So I am looking forward to seeing what happens there. Uh, for those who are listening, what are your predictions for Maul Shadow Lord? Because I just think that there's so much that there's so much potential in that show. And I think something else as well is that you really got to think of where the galaxy is at this point, because in a way the Empire is trying to erase of anything that involves the Jedi at all, but also it's still kind of fresh to the galaxy that there were Jedi and that the entire galaxy is kind of adjusting to what the Empire is. It's going to be really, really cool and interesting to see how that all happens from the perspective of Maul. It looks like we have some really cool ones. Um, yes. So I said this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Um, this is from Limitless Nerd. Maul versus Vader for sure will happen, is what he's saying. Maul was clearly scared of Vader and Rebels, so they'll fight, and I think Maul will lose badly. So I said this a couple of weeks ago, so I'm glad that there's a lot of people on the same page. And there was a comic that actually happened in Legends where Maul and Vader fought. So I really would love to see this in live action. I mean, well, I would love to see it in live action, but I would love to see it in the show. And then also, you're absolutely right, because in Rebels you had Maul where Maul kind of heard the name Vader, and he kind of had like he he was very frightened in a way in that scene of when he says he's here. And we know as an audience that he meant Vader, but it's like, did you meet Vader before? Like, did you have some type of encounter? And Maul Shadow Lord is the perfect place because in the trailer we see the Inquisitors going after him, and the only time that Vader comes in is if the Inquisitors can't get the job done. So, seeing Vader in action in this animation style is going to be so cool because we've seen Vader twice technically in this animation because we saw him in Tales of the Empire, of when Barriss Offee officially becomes a Sith Inquisitor, and then we saw him at the end in the actual last scene of season 7 of the Clone Wars. So Vader coming back would be really cool, and we know that they'll most likely use James Earl Jones' voice because before he passed away, he did give them the rights to use his voice moving forward in some capacity. And a couple of years ago, Matt Lanter did state that he was not done voicing the character of Anakin, and we could maybe see some type of kind of mix between of what we saw in Rebels, of where it jumped back from James Earl Jones' voice to Matt Lanter, or it could be, it could be something completely different. But I would love to think that Matt Lanter will continue playing that character in some way. Um, and then I think one character that I really would love to see pop up would maybe be Quinlan Voss because he's been mentioned so much in the past couple of years. And then I think there will also be some type of tie-in with Solo because we know Dryden Voss went into hiding at the end of the Clone Wars because of the scene of where Maul is talking to all of the crime families of telling them to go underground because he knows something bad is about to happen. Oh, here we go. This is also from Limitless Nerd. I'd love to also see Dryden or Kira in some connections to Solo and Crimson Dawn. So Kira, so the events of Solo happened way after this, so I don't know anything about Kira, but Dryden, absolutely. I think we're both on the same page about that. So there is a lot to look forward to. I am very, very excited to see of where the show goes, and it's awesome that we're getting 2 episodes a week leading up to May 4th. We don't know if there's going to be a new story of Tales because for the past couple of years around May 4th, we have gotten something with Tales. Tales of the Jedi technically came out in the fall, but then Tales of the Underworld and Tales of the Empire for the past couple of years, both of those have come out on May 4th. So I'm really curious if they'll continue that. But yeah, so I am really excited to see what happens. And then not only that, my prediction as well for May 4th, just because I love that day. It's like Christmas to me, and now I have a son, so I can carry on all those fun traditions. But I'm thinking that they'll probably do something special for Fortnite because they did it last year and it was such a big hit. And then possibly a new episode of Tales, some type of teaser trailer maybe for Starfighter coming out next year because I think they want to start promoting that movie as soon as they can. Like even if they kind of recreate that opening of Top Gun of where they just show like a bunch of different different really cool shots of ships like getting ready to take off. It would be super cool. I think people would love that. So I think May 4th, I think there's going to be a lot going on this year. We definitely know there will be a lot going on next year because next year is the 50th anniversary. So there's a lot to look forward to. And if you are in the Michigan area, I would definitely check out Space Dive, which is going to be happening in May. Specifically, May 4th weekend leading up to the week the weekend of May 8th and 9th, because that is one of the most immersive experiences of Star Wars that you'll ever have. They will not let you in unless you're wearing some type of Star Wars costume. So everyone going in, you are immersed in that world right away. They have life size A wing. They got live entertainment. They have stormtroopers walking around. It's absolutely insane. It's like a Star Wars Renaissance fair. That's a really great way to describe it. But people are just in character. It's so cool, and you may or may not see Chewbacca and some other great characters. So go and check out Space Dive. But yeah, super excited about that. And then, of course, we got C2E2 coming up and Mosh Isley in 2 weeks, which is absolutely insane. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to look forward to. But yeah, that's really it for this week. I'm flying solo, so there really isn't you know, anyone to really talk back and forth to. But uh stay tuned for a bunch of cool stuff, and especially us breaking down content over at C2E2. There will be a couple of us from the Virtual Cantina Network, so get excited for that. And then also we have the museum coming out, which is super exciting, and I'm actually going to do a breakdown of that soon. Stay tuned for more interviews that we all did over at Rebel Scum Con, including Bunta Eve from last year. There's still so many that a bunch of us are doing different edits on, so stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for listening. May the force be with you forever and always.